Hi there, good afternoon. So I will introduce it and then I'll let Hong Yang kind of talk to some of the stuff that he's been working on. All right, so quite a big month and a bit for the Televerse team. Specifically, I'll just touch on a few things. We also did have an on-site in KL a week ago, which was more based around the UI and so forth, and getting everyone in alignment on that. But in terms of development, there's been some pretty big breakthroughs. The first one I'll touch on and all of these relate to the MVP, just by the way. So the first one is into SP DIDCOM messaging. So we've successfully enabled service providers to register themselves, create their digital identity, their DID, and then communicate their NNIs between each other to essentially advertise the NNIs that they want to share with other service providers. And that is all working through DIDCOM messaging, which is a protocol, if anyone's not familiar, but essentially it's just for decentralized messaging. So that was a big milestone achievement in the last month. And we also, building on that, we have introduced the generation of certain keys that are necessary to support both DIDCOM messaging and also VC verification, which Hong Yang's going to touch on a little bit later. Then building on that, so what I've touched on already pertains to the service providers who are running the TSPNs. The next piece of the puzzle is for the end customers to be able to use the MetaMask Snap and be able to generate their own keys of the same type, ED25519 and X25519. They need to be able to generate those keys because the service providers and the end customers will need to be able to send messages, DIDCOM messages, for searches and responses to searches and so forth. So that at the time of writing is about 70% complete. There is there was some difficulty around that because once again, the MetaMask Snap context is in a highly secure environment running a secure version of ECMAScript. And so there's a bit of a workaround in the time being. Some of the Ethereum methods are not available within the MetaMask Snap. And so the workaround there is to return the keys and the public key information back into the DApp or the TSPN UI and then submit the transaction from the browser. Already touched on the TSPN UI. So on the 1st and 2nd of April, the Televerse team caught up with Nez and also Henry was there. We went through some big changes with respect to the UI and also touched on the custodial website. So there will be a custodial, essentially a trusted place for the end customers to be able to inject their data. So anyway, that kind of summarizes.
Hi, Joe, can you mute your microphone?
The PDF tools. We call Foxit PDF. That one is very good tools.
Okay, please continue.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, that summarizes essentially everything I wanted to talk to. Are there any questions about what I've covered off there? No worries. If not, then I will hand the floor over to Hong Yang, who's going to touch on some more of the Televerse project.
Yeah, so thanks, Radley. Before that, I just want to know, Radley, do you just cover the section for the HCS or you skip that part just?
Oh, really good point. Yeah, no, thanks for reminding me, Hong Yang. I was like,
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's not a, yeah, I kind of missed that header, but that's a really good point, Hong Yang. not sharing my screen, but it's not necessarily important. Essentially, one of the other tasks that we achieved in last month was to set all of our service provider DID advertisement and also subscription. So when service providers need to be aware of other service providers, ultimately this will be replaced by the zero knowledge EVM. But for the purposes of the MVP, we have introduced the logic around subscribing to the Hedera consensus service, grabbing the DIDs of the other service providers, and also advertising. If you imagine you're a service provider, you need to advertise your own DID to the service, and that way you can then resolve the identifiers of other service providers, and then you know where to send them their DIDCOM messages. So that was another achievement, and thanks Hong Yang for pointing that out.
Yeah, no worries. All right, so I will just continue with the VC, which the full name, which will be the verifiable credential. So this is just a small breakdown of what it is. We have some metadata of the credential, and we have a claims and a proof with it. So just some context here. This is just like a format or encapsulation message format that we can put literally anything into as a claim, and we could cryptographically prove that it's generated with the private and the public key pair. So with that, it could be added as a tamper-proof and a privacy enhanced mechanism that is stated here. This is why you can see that this VC not alone can be used for single purpose, but actually we are using it for multi-purpose due to its strength here. And I have breakdown here as well for our use cases. So this is kind of to be one of our core technology that we will use across the system. And I have been touched on that with the authentication due to the inherent nature of it. So we can have a tamper-proof authentication, as we will need to verify the proof that is generated by the user. So authentication, the EC here was meant for the end user, or known as enterprise user based on the context. So sometimes we call it as a buyer. So for Televerse, when the buyer will have to authenticate, we will have to generate a VC and with the claims and the proof. So the claims will contain the information about the authentication mechanism, which will then be able to prove with the user. And next, we will have the use case for the end user as well, which the buyer to submit the search. So this will be the actual use cases that will be demonstratable once we have everything set in stone. So we will send a VC as a search with different parameters based on the service category that we have discussed through the meetings in the KL office, as already mentioned before. And each of the RFQ here will be uniquely identified with a UUID. So there is a reference to which of the search queries coming from and who. And it will then be published to the HCS that already had been shared just now, that is available for all the subscribed TSPN, which is also known as a seller. So all sellers are aware of the RFQ and they could react to it correspondingly. So besides then the buyer side, for the TSPN, we are also utilizing this as to return to the result as a code on the search result. So once the TSPN receive the query of the RFQ, we could conduct our on-net search, and it will then generate both VC if we have a return result or a solution. So the first one will contain with the full code solution and the search result, and we will be packaged into a VP, which I will explain later, and also the reducted VC that give just enough information for all the other TSPN to conduct the consecutive search. So that this is for the case where the one TSPN does not have the full solution, whereas he have only the partial solution. And for the others, TSPN should know that he will need some kind of information, and that kind of information are coming from as a reducted VC that's contain consented information that is coming from the solution. So this is basically the implementation of VC across our whole system. And next, I would like to bring attention to the VP that I just mentioned above. So basically VP is just an encapsulation layer on top of the VC that we have been trying to convey before this. So it means that one VP, we could potentially have multiple VC or just a single VC. It's not limited to any of the numbers, but it just terms that you use here, and with the proof as well that is corresponding to each of the VC. So as you can see here, the use cases will be that for each of the TSPN, they could actually package each of their solution segment, the VC, into one VP and send it through to the buyer end user. So the end user will receive multiple chunks of solution from the same TSPN if there is any, and they could proceed it accordingly. So that's conclude my sharing about the task that we went through for the month. Is there any question? If there is no, I think I will pass back to Jonathan for the next part.
Okay. So yeah, that was actually the last part. So thank you, Rally and Hong. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, very good. So yeah, so that will wrap up our release note meeting for the month of March. So okay, thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, team. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Bye bye. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye.